You are watching the Neuro-Affirming Conversation Hour for outreach and support. The Humanities 101 Foundation welcomes you.
Welcome back, Nacho Nuts. And if you're new here, let me explain that name for just a second. I call you Nacho Nuts because this space is not just a podcast and it's not just a class. It's our little collective mission. We are exploring what it means to be human and how to build a life with more predictability, more balance, and more joy. We do that with warmth, with honesty, and with the deep belief that your brain is not broken. We believe your brain is worth supporting. I want to start today with a quote that feels like a gentle weather report for the soul. Yoko Ono once wrote, "Spring passes and one remembers one's innocence. Summer passes and one remembers one's exuberance. Autumn passes and one remembers one's reverence. Winter passes and one remembers one's perseverance." Now, that line lands for me because it reminds us of something we forget in the middle of our busy weeks. The seasons keep moving. Whether we celebrate them or not, they keep moving. And if we are not careful, we can move right past our own lives too. Past the innocence of fresh starts, past the exuberance of energy, past the reverence of reflection, and past the perseverance it takes to get through a hard stretch. So this week, we are talking about holidays and why humans build them in the first place. Not just the big ones on the calendars, but the small ones that help the nervous system breathe. The markers that say, pause here. The rituals that tell our bodies you are safe enough to look up. The celebrations that help us notice that time is passing and that we are still here. And because you are here, Nacho Knots, we are not just going to talk about holidays as a history or tradition. We're going to talk about holidays as a form of care, as community technology even, as a way to create predictability when life feels unpredictable, balance when everything feels like too much, and joy that is not forced, but chosen. Which brings us to the midterm project. For the midterm, you're going to create a holiday of your own, not a joke holiday, although it can have absolute humor in it, but a real, thoughtful human holiday. One that answers a few big questions. What does your community need? What does your nervous system need? What do you want to remember when this season passes? What would you want people to practice together so they feel more grounded, more connected, more alive? Think of it like this. You're designing a moment in the year where when people get to be a little more human on purpose. So in this episode, we're going to explore how holidays work, why they matter, how they shape identity and belonging, and how you can build one that is meaningful and doable, not overwhelming and performative. And yes, we're keeping it neuro-affirming, because the goal is not to create a holiday that looks impressive on paper. The goal is to create one that feels supportive in real life. So wherever you're listening from and whatever season you're in, remember, you've made it here, and that's what counts. So let's talk about how to mark time with care, how to celebrate without burning out, and how to build traditions that help us remember who we are. And now that we have that Yoko Ono lantern in our hands, let's zoom out from the poetry of seasons to the anthropology of why we mark seasons at all. In the piece we're using today, anthropologist Demetrius Zagalatis explains that holidays work like social glue and nervous system scaffolding at the same time. They're packed with sensory cues. The smell of food, familiar songs, special lights, textures, and routines. And those cues tell our brain this is no ordinary day. That sensory pageantry helps lock memories in place and turns a moment into a marker we can carry forward. He also points out something very PB&J friendly. Rituals are structured and repetitive on purpose, and that structure can buffer anxiety because it makes the world feel more predictable and navigable, especially when the rest of life feels uncertain. In other words, a holiday is often a shared script, and shared scripts help humans breathe. And then there's the community function. Rituals bring people into sync. They reinforce belonging, deepen bonds, and remind us of who we are. Family, friends, classmates, neighbors, faith communities, or even chosen families. Even gift giving, which can feel simple on the surface or sometimes impossible when you're trying to find the right one, is described as a powerful way societies maintain social ties through reciprocal care and connection. So when we say holidays matter, we're not just saying they're fun. We're saying they help societies remember, bond, and regulate. They make meaning, and they make belonging feel tangible, which is exactly why your midterm is so interesting. When you design a new holiday, you are not just inventing a theme, you're designing a ritual system. You're building a shared pause button with sensory markers, repeatable actions, and a purpose that serves real human needs. So sit back, Nacho Nuts. Let's keep going with the humanness of the holiday, and I want you to know up front, I'm pulling these ideas, all of these ideas, from the resources that I posted in Google Classroom inside the midterm section in the classwork tab. There are many more readings, examples, websites, even videos in there, more than I can cover in one episode, so consider this your guided trailhead, not the whole forest. When we talk about holidays, we're really talking about how human beings mark time or make meaning together. One of the big ideas in our celebration readings is that holidays help a community take the blur of days and shape it into something they can feel. Celebrations are a kind of social timekeeping. They interrupt routine. They separate the ordinary from the extraordinary, and they make time feel shared and significant. And here's the magic move. Holidays do not just give us a date on the calendar. They give us a different kind of time. They move us from clock time into lived time. The time where a moment can feel bigger than it should on paper because it holds memory, meaning, and people. That is why a holiday dinner can feel like it lasts 5 minutes and 5 hours at the same time. This connects to what anthropologists in our holiday ritual readings points out. Holiday traditions hit us through the senses. Smells, food, songs, lights, textures. That sensory extra signals to our brain. This, again, is no ordinary day. And because it is sensory and emotional, it becomes memorable and it becomes bonding. So why do we love these rituals and traditions? Because rituals do a few deeply human jobs at once. First, rituals bond us. Holiday traditions create a shared script, and shared scripts lower social friction. You don't have to invent connection from scratch. You show up, you do the thing, you belong. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Second, rituals stabilize us. Seasonal celebrations are predictable on purpose. They give your year a rhythm you can lean on. That matters when life feels chaotic, uncertain, or heavy. Third, rituals tell a community what it values. Some holidays are religious, but many are civic or cultural, and they preserve a memory of people or events, and they reflect the diversity of cultural practices. Now let's get real for a minute. Holidays are also tied to consumer culture. We all know this. Cards, decorations, clothing, food, the whole ecosystem. So I want you to hold a both and for this project. Yes, holidays can be commercialized, and yes, holidays can still be profoundly human. The question is not, is this holiday pure? The question is, what is this holiday doing? What is the purpose? What is the outcome? What is it helping people remember, repair, renew, or recommit to? That is why public rituals matter too. Think about parades, all right? They're not just floats and candy. They're a public ritual that expresses community values, creates positive interaction between participants and observers, and reinforces group identities. And parades can carry tension as well. Some parades are institutional and polished, built to reaffirm civic order and respectability, but others are more alternative. I think of the Doodah Parade in Columbus, borrowing from Carnival and parody. And sometimes they push back against the mainstream. Think of Pride parades. In other words, holidays are one of the places where society practices being society. And sometimes we practice belonging through nostalgia and sweetness, like a family recipe that shows up every December. But sometimes we practice belonging through public memory, holding grief and celebration in the same hands. Sometimes we practice belonging through play, like Halloween, where everyone agrees to pretend together for one night. And this is where your midterm comes in. For the midterm, you're creating a holiday of your own. Now, this is an anthropology and a humanities assignment disguised as creativity. You're being asked to design meaning on purpose. So as you build your holiday, ask yourself questions like these. What part of human life does my holiday honor? Rest, grief, gratitude, survival, community, humor, repair, beginnings, endings? What will people do together that makes the value visible? What sensory details, think about all of them, will mark the day as different? Does my holiday reinforce the status quo, or does it gently challenge it? Who's included and who might feel left out? And how could I design it more generously? This is the work. That is the humanity of holidays and what you're doing for your midterm. And again, everything I'm drawing on comes from your resources in the Google Classroom. But there are tons of other things that you can check out, so go explore. Find the thread that grabs you and then build something that helps people remember what matters. And here's the other side of it, Nacho Knots, because holidays are not only warm and wonderful, they are powerful. And anything powerful can be used in more than one direction. Holidays can help a community heal and connect, but they can also be used to keep a community quiet. They can soothe the edges of public anger, redirect attention away from injustice, and turn real demands into something symbolic that gets contained into one day on the calendar. And sometimes that happens through what we might call the pressure release valve effect. A society gives people one sanctioned moment to express grief, pride, or outrage, and then gently nudges them back into business as usual the next morning. You get a parade, you get a speech, you get a social media post, a corporate statement, and then the machine keeps moving. In that way, a holiday can become a substitute for change instead of a spark for it. It can feel like progress while leaving the underlying structures mostly untouched. Other times, it happens through the way holidays are framed. The story gets cleaned up. The comfortable parts get softened, or the uncomfortable parts get softened. The comfortable parts get brought up to the surface. The conflict gets edited out so that the holiday becomes about unity without accountability, harmony without repair. We celebrate the idea of justice while avoiding the work of justice. We honor the memory while forgetting the message. And when that happens, the holiday becomes a kind of social lullaby, a beautiful song that helps people sleep through the hard questions. And then there's the status function. Holidays can reinforce who is quote unquote normal, who is centered, and whose traditions get treated as default. Which holidays get federal recognition? Which ones get school days off? Which ones get retail aisles and marketing budgets? Which ones get explained as real holidays versus special interest days? Even that hierarchy teaches people what the culture matters most. So yes, holidays can be a home for belonging, but they can also be a tool of social stasis, quietly reinforcing the same power arrangements year after year after year after year. So if we're going to create a holiday of our own, or even just participate in the ones we inherited, we want to ask one more brave set of questions. What is this holiday encouraging people to remember, and what is it encouraging people to forget? Who benefits from the story being told this way? And does this celebration send us back into the world more awake, more connected, and more willing to act, or does it send us back to sleep? There's a really important tension here, and it's one reason holidays are such a revealing mirror. A holiday can be a doorway into a deeper truth, but it can also be a way of putting truth in a display case. Some critics argue that when the pressure for change gets loud enough, institutions sometimes respond by offering recognition in the form of a holiday. That recognition can feel like progress, and it can be meaningful, but it can also function as a social sedative. A sanctioned day of remembrance that relieves pressure without changing the conditions that created it in the first place. People make this argument about Juneteenth's federal recognition in 2021, especially when you look at the timeline in the wake of the 2020 Black Lives Matter uprisings and protests. The holiday has deep roots that long predate the federal act, but the timing of federal adoption matters. Critics point out that a national holiday is easier to pass than structural reforms, and they worry that the celebration can become a substitute for policy. A day for statements, merch, and corporate branding, while voting rights battles, policy debates, and economic inequities remain unsolved. Other voices respond that Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday is not the end of the story. It is a platform, a national permission slip to teach, to remember, and to organize. And let's be honest, both can be true. It can be a real gain, and it can also be a move that some institutions will try to use as a pressure release valve. Labor Day often gets framed through a similar lens. It became a federal holiday in 1894, right in the shadow of intense labor conflict, including the Pullman strike and the violence and federal crackdown surrounding it. Many historians note that the political decision to formalize Labor Day at that moment, and also on the day that it falls, can be read as an attempt to calm unrest and restore order. And when I say about the day that it falls, look at when the rest of the world celebrates Labor Day. It's a classic pattern. Recognize workers with a holiday and speeches about dignity while also working to contain labor's disruptive power. And over time, critics argue, Labor Day's sharper edges got softened. It became less about collective struggle and more about vague celebrations of work, which is a subtle but meaningful shift. So if we're being honest, holidays are never neutral. They do not just reflect society, they shape it. They can amplify change by keeping memory alive and build community energy, or they can domesticate change by turning a living movement into a yearly ritual that feels complete once the day is over. That is why, when you create your own holiday for the midterm, you are not only designing a fun tradition, you're designing what your holiday does. Does it only soothe, or does it also strengthen? Does it comfort people into forgetting, or does it comfort people enough to keep going? So, all right, Nacho Nuts, with this in mind, let's bring this home, right? Let's bring this whole midterm thing home, right? Because again, this is not an invent a cute holiday and make it look pretty. This is you practicing real humanities work. You're taking a big human question. What do people need? And how do we help them remember it? And you are answering it with design, story, ritual, and meaning. So here's your first move. Start with the why. Before you pick a name, before you pick a date, before you pick a color palette or a theme song, ask yourself one steady question. What human need is my holiday built to serve? Is it built to honor rest in a culture that worships overwork? Is it built to make room for grief in a world that rushes people past mourning? Is it built to celebrate the quiet wins, the small survival, the I made it through this week? Is it built to repair relationships? Is it built to help people connect to community? Is it built to help people notice the season that they find themselves in? If you can write one sentence that starts with, this holiday exists to help people, then you have enough foundation strong enough to build on. Now, the second move, make it doable. A holiday is not a test. It is a doorway. So design your rituals like you are building a ramp, not a staircase. Give people multiple ways to participate. Give them options that are quiet. Give them options that are social. Give them options that are practical. For example, if your holiday is about recovery from burnout, maybe there's a 15-minute permission ritual where people choose one thing to set down for the day. Maybe there's a community swap, not buying, but sharing. Books, soup, plants, hand-me-downs. Maybe there's a simple script. Today we honor the fact that rest is productive. Today we practice gentleness. If your holiday is about gratitude, don't make it about gratitude performance. Make it specific. One note, one message, one person, one memory. Gratitude works best when it is small enough to be real. And third move, pick your date like it matters, because it does. Put it somewhere that makes sense with the seasons, with school rhythms, with local life. A holiday near the end of winter will feel different than a holiday in early summer. A holiday during finals week will carry different weight than one right after spring break. Explain your date choice in one or two lines. Tie it to the body, tie it to the weather, tie it to the calendar, tie it to the story that overall you're telling. Fourth move, build 3 to 5 traditions that can repeat. Holidays become holidays through repetition. So give your holiday a few anchor rituals. Not 10, not 20, 3 to 5. A shared food is a classic anchor, but it does not have to be complicated. You can choose a simple seasonal food that is affordable or accessible. Or you could choose a no food needed ritual like a walk at sunset, a candle moment, a playlist, a community cleanup, a storytelling circle, or a yearly letter to your future self. And as you design those traditions, think about the sensory stuff. What will people see? What will they hear? What will they smell? What will they touch? What makes this feel different from an ordinary Tuesday or Saturday? Now here's the brave part, Nacho Nuts, the part that shows you're really understanding what we've been talking about. Ask the hard questions. What could go wrong with my holiday? Could it turn into something performative, something commercialized? Could it unintentionally exclude people who are low income, disabled, grieving, estranged from family, or simply exhausted? Could it reinforce the very social patterns it claims to resist? And then write a simple safeguard into your design. Maybe you explicitly make it gift-free. Maybe you make it no obligation. Maybe you build in an opt-out ritual into it, a way to participate privately. Maybe you create a tradition of mutual aid instead of consumption. Maybe you emphasize choice and accessibility as part of the holiday's core values. That is you doing your ethics. And that is you doing real humanities work. Now, how do you present this? If you're writing the paper, think of it as telling the story of your holiday in a way that makes the reader want to join in. Use clear headings. Keep your sections tidy. Walk us through it like a guided tour. Name and purpose, date and reason, traditions, symbols and sensory markers, who it serves, how it builds community, and your safeguards, how you keep it from becoming hollow or harmful. If you're doing the video, treat it like an invitation. Start with a hook that's human. Something like, have you ever wished there was a holiday for blah, 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 blah? And then name it. Then explain why it exists. Then walk us through what people actually do. Keep it grounded, keep it clear, make it feel possible. But here's my biggest tip for both formats. Do not try to impress me. Try to help a human being. Make it kind, make it accessible, make it meaningful, make it repeatable. That will impress me. It's about what's up here. Because the best holiday is not the fanciest one. It's the one that when the season passes, it helps people remember something true and something human. And that is the assignment. So Nacho Nuts, let me pause right here and speak to you as students and as people, because this is why the humanities matter. Not because they make you sound smart at parties, not because they give you trivia about ancient cultures or old books, although they do. The humanities matter because they teach you how the real world actually works and how human beings actually function inside it. They teach you how to look at a thing everyone takes for granted, a holiday, a tradition, a slogan, a normal policy, a familiar story, and it teaches you to ask, who built this? Why did they build it? Who benefits? Who was left out? What does it train us to feel? What does it train us to forget? Critical thinking is not just being skeptical. Critical thinking is learning how to see the invisible wires. Because so much of life runs on unspoken rules. What counts as polite? What counts as professional? What counts as worthy? What counts as normal? As successful? What counts as patriotism or good behavior? Those ideas do not float down from the sky. They get made by people, repeated by institutions, reinforced by stories, and then they start to feel like nature, like they've always been there. And that is where the humanities gives you power. When you can see that something is constructed, you can question it. When you can question it, you can choose how to respond to it. And when enough people can do that together, societies, they change. It's not abstract. It's not theoretical. It is real. That's how movements happen. That's how policies shift. That's how new norms are born. So let's bring it back to holidays because it's the perfect example. A holiday can be a beautiful act of remembrance. It can heal. It can gather people. It can create a sense of belonging. It can keep history alive, but it can also be used to smooth conflict, to redirect anger, to polish a national story so that it feels comfortable, to make us celebrate the idea of justice while avoiding the work of justice. If you do not know that, you will get played. You will think that the holiday is the whole truth. You will think that the parade equals progress. You will think that the statement equals change. You'll think that the ritual is the same thing as repair. But when you understand how humans use rituals and stories in society, you can hold both truths at once. You can enjoy the celebration and still ask, what's going on here? You can feel the comfort and still keep your eyes open. You can honor memory and still demand accountability. That's mature thinking. That is adult citizenship. And that's real critical thinking. And here's the most important part for you as a student. Critical thinking is not just a school skill. It's a life skill. It's how you protect yourself from manipulative marketing, from propaganda, from peer pressure. It's how you recognize when you're being sold an identity instead of being offered a truth. It's how you notice when a system is training you to accept less than you deserve. It's how you learn to ask better questions, choose better leaders, build better communities, and design a better world. So when you're doing this midterm, don't treat it like a goofy creativity assignment. Treat it like a practice for adulthood. You're practicing how to make meaning on purpose. You are practicing how to build a ritual that serves people rather than controls them. You're practicing how to think like a human being who can still see the wires and still choose warmth. Because that's the goal of Humanities, Nacho Knots. Not to make you cynical, to make you awake, and to help you build a world that is more honest, more humane, and worth living in. And I want to name something plainly, Nacho Knots, because pretending otherwise does not help anyone. Right now, the world can feel less human, less honest, less safe, and not in an abstract way. There are people who have been injured and killed in public places by institutions they were told to trust. There are families who have watched the systems that were supposed to protect them become the source of their fear. If you can carry anger, grief, numbness, or exhaustion when you think about that, you are not overreacting. You're responding to something that should not be normal. And here's the hard part. When reality looks like that, your nervous system does not just feel sad. It goes on alert. You might find yourself doom scrolling, snapping, shutting down, dissociating, or feeling like your body is buzzing even when you're sitting still. I know I do. But you know what? That is not you being broken. That's not me being broken. That is us and our brains trying to keep us alive in a world that has given all of us way too many reasons to stay guarded. So this is where we do a very nachos kind of thing. We tell the truth and we practice care at the same time. First, give your body one clear signal of safety, even if you're furious. Put your feet on the floor, unclench your jaw, drop your shoulders a fraction, take one slow breath in, and make the exhale longer than the inhale. Then look around and name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. I do colors too. It's not pretending that everything's fine. This is you taking your body out of emergency mode long enough to think clearly and choose your next step. So second, choose your inputs like they matter because they do. You don't have to watch the footage to prove you care. You do not have to absorb trauma to be morally awake. Set a boundary for how and when you take in news. Pick 1 or 2 reliable sources, pick a time window, then close it. Caring is not measured by how wrecked you feel. Caring is measured by what you can sustain. Third, practice self-respect in your self-talk. If your mind is saying, I should be able to handle this, try replacing it with, this is heavy because this is real. I'm allowed to be impacted. I can be honest about what hurts and still be kind to myself. I do not have to carry it all at once. I only have to take the next step. And finally, remember this, Nacho Knots. When the world feels less human, you do not have to wait for the world to change before you practice humanity. You can make it tangible. You can check in on someone. You can witness without sensationalizing. You can support organizations doing the real work. You can vote, Show up, learn, donate if you can, rest when you must, and keep your heart from calcifying. We choose light, but not the fake kind. The kind that tells truth. The kind that keeps you grounded. The kind that helps you stay human in a moment that is trying to strip your humanity away from you. And I really need to admit something, Nacho Knots. After everything we just named, the harm, the grief, the way the institutions can betray us, it can feel almost absurd to talk about hope. Like the very idea of it belongs to a softer world, a different world, one that we're not living in now. And when reality is loud with suffering, hope can sound like a luxury item, like something you have to earn, like something that only makes sense if you're not paying attention. So if you hear me say, we choose light, and part of you wants to laugh, or part of you wants to snap back, I get it. It's not a character flaw. That's your nervous system trying to protect you from disappointment. That's your heart saying, don't make me believe in something that will break me again. And there's a strange kind of honesty in that reaction, because it means you are not numb. You're still here, and yes, you still care. And that is why I want to offer you words from someone who understood that feeling of absurd hope, not as a motivational poster, but as a daily decision made under pressure. Someone who looked around at the world and didn't sugarcoat it. Someone who basically said, this is impossible, and still, it's really a wonder that I haven't dropped all my ideals because they seem so absurd and so impossible to carry out, yet I keep them. Because in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. That was Anne Frank. And I bring her into this moment for one reason, not to romanticize suffering and not to pretend that belief fixes injustice, but to remind us what hope actually is. Hope is not denial. Hope is not a prediction. Hope is the refusal to let cruelty be the only thing that shapes your inner life. It is the decision to keep your ideals intact even when the world is trying to beat them out of you. So when we say we choose light, we mean this. We tell the truth. We stay awake. We keep our humanity, and we keep taking the next right step. Not because it's easy, because giving up on your ideals is exactly what the worst parts of the world are counting on. And with that, Nacho Knots, here's what we did together today. We started with the seasons, with Yoko Ono reminding us that time keeps moving and that each season leaves something in us. Innocence, exuberance, reverence, and perseverance. From there, we talked about why humans build holidays in the first place, how rituals and traditions help us mark time, store memory in the senses, and strengthen belonging through shared scripts that make life feel a little more navigable. Then we held the harder truth. Holidays are never neutral. They do not just reflect society, they shape it. They can keep memory alive and fuel community energy, or they can soften conflict and turn living demands into something that feels contained to one day or to one part of the calendar. We explored that tension, the way a holiday can be both meaningful and at times used as a pressure release valve. And after that, we brought it back to your midterm because your assignment is not just creative. It's critical thinking practice. You're being asked to design a holiday that serves real human needs and to think clearly about what your holiday reinforces, what it challenges, who it includes, and how you keep it from becoming hollow or performative. We also talked about why the humanities matter outside of the classroom. We talked about how they teach you to see the invisible wires, the stories, the rituals, the norms that shape what people believe is normal, and to ask better questions about power, belonging, and meaning. And finally, we named the world as it is. We acknowledged the grief, the harm, the pain, the sorrow that makes hope feel ridiculous right now. And we chose a version of light that does not deny the darkness, the kind that keeps you grounded and human. And we ended by borrowing words that hold the same tension we're holding. Ideals can feel absurd and impossible, and still we keep them, because giving them up is exactly what the worst parts of the world are counting on. So Nacho Knots, here's where we land. If your ideals feel heavy this week, you're not doing it wrong. If your hope feels ridiculous, you are not broken. Sometimes that's the most honest thing your body can tell you. This is too much. But it also tells you, I am still here. And that still here part matters, because it means you've not gone numb and you've not handed your heart over to cynicism as a permanent home. And because we are still here, Nacho Knots, and because we're still doing the work of Nachos, we're going to take all of this truth and translate it into care. Not the fake kind, the practical kind. The kind that helps you keep your humanity intact long enough to live your life and show up for other people. So in a second, I want to offer you a handful of affirmations for the week, not as magic words and not as a way to bypass real pain. I want you to think of them as anchors, little phrases you can grab when your mind starts spiraling, when your shoulders creep up, when you feel yourself hardening just to get through the day. And as you listen, I want you to choose only one or two that actually land. You don't have to take them all in. Pick the one that feels like water. Pick the one your nervous system recognizes as true. You can write it down. Send yourself a text message. Put it in your notes app. Put it on a sticky note. Say it once in the morning, or once before you open the news, or once before you walk into work or into class. So I want you to take a breath with me, because before we get to these affirmations, I want you to take a minute and I want you to answer this for the weekly participation question. If you had to design a holiday that your future self would genuinely need, what would it be for, and what would people do on that day? In your response, simply include the name of your holiday, the human need it serves, right? And then one sensory marker that makes it feel different from an ordinary day. A smell, a song, a color, or a food. And then finally, tell me again, right, one safeguard that helps it from being performative. So this is some brainstorming work. Think about yourself. What would you need, right? And then give us some examples. Keep it short, but make it real. So here are your affirmations for the week, Nacho Knots. I can tell the truth about what hurts, and I can still choose to stay human. My hope does not have to be loud to be real. It can be quiet, steady, and practiced. I do not have to carry everything today. I only have to take the next right step. I'm allowed to protect my nervous system while staying awake to what matters. This season will pass and I will remember what it taught me. I can honor innocence, exuberance, reverence, and perseverance without shame. I can celebrate what is worth celebrating without performing for anyone. I can grieve without rushing myself, and I can rest without earning it. I can see the invisible wires, and I can choose my values on purpose. I will not confuse symbols for justice. I will keep moving towards real repair. Even when my ideals feel absurd, I can keep them gently and stubbornly. I choose light that tells the truth, keeps me grounded, and helps me keep my heart intact. And that is where we'll leave you for today, guys. Remember, if you're listening in a hard season, I want you to hear me clearly. You don't have to be fearless to be brave. You just have to stay connected to what is true and take care of the body that carries you through it. Drink some water. Eat something with real substance. Step outside if you can, even for a minute or less, depending on the wind chill. Send one kind message. Do one small ritual that reminds you that you are not alone. So thank you for being here, Nacho Knots. Thank you for choosing honesty with me, and thank you for choosing a kind of world that does not deny the world, but refuses to surrender your humanity to it. And if this episode gave you something steady to hold on to, here's how you can help keep this little mission going. Follow or subscribe where you listen. Leave a quick rating or review if your platform allows it, and share this episode with one person who might need it this week. And if you have the capacity and you want to support the work more directly, consider donating to help us keep building this space and reaching more people. No pressure, just an open door and deep gratitude. So until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Keep building a life with a little more predictability, a little more balance, and a little more joy.
Thank you for joining us. See you next week. The views and opinions expressed in this video are solely those of the creator and do not reflect the views of any institution, employer, or affiliated organization.